We're now joined here by a very special guest to the Dad Jokes podcast, and that is Dane Pellerino, the founder and the owner of Dad Bods Sculptors. So, Dane, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on here. We try to be fit dads, but we wanted to bring you in and kind of have you tell us about what you do and what you can maybe do for some of our listeners.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Super grateful to be on the show. So I'm the founder of Dad Bods Sculptors, and it's an online coaching platform for men over 35. And essentially what we do is help men who are busy, newer dads, later dads, who have prioritized other areas of their life as we become fathers and we become husbands. The shift in priority kind of changes for us. And so we have limited time for ourselves. And that was kind of my story. I had found myself kind of disciplined and regimented and always into kind of getting better. But as I became a husband and then a new father to a 3-year-old and then a 1-year-old, I had found that I was in an unhappy state. I didn't feel good in my skin. And it was because I was prioritizing everything else but myself. And even though I was staying active in training 5-6 days a week, kind of checking the box through group fitness classes or calisthenics or watching YouTube videos and kind of just putting something together and always thinking I was kind of eating health consciously, the weight was coming on. And I started to slowly recognize my body composition was changing. And in changing of my body, a lot of other things started kind of scaling downwards for me. And so for that, it was kind of my thoughts with the way that I saw myself. It was my confidence. It was my energy levels. It was how I was showing up for my wife and my family and my employees. And so that just over the course of time, I started to recognize I'm not being the person I wanted to be for my wife or my kids. And most importantly, they weren't the highest priority at the time. I was prioritizing business because I run a headhunting firm that specializes in building product management teams for software companies. So I had built that company from scratch, and within a 3-year period, we became number one in the world at what we did. And we dominated Google. It was all organic. So I took a business that had never kind of niched in such a narrow area for headhunting. And because usually headhunters cover lots of different positions. They cover, you name it, whatever position you give them, they'll recruit. But this firm was very specialized. We only focused on recruiting product management, the function there. And it was heads of product and above. And so that grew pretty successfully. We went from no leads to like 25, 30 leads a month. And so that sucked up a lot of my time. And so I was successful, right? As I built this business and money was becoming easier and more fluid in my life that I'd always chased, I recognized I have the most money that I've ever had, but I have the least amount of happiness that I've ever had. And over the course of a year, that really dragged at me. And how it dragged at me was I was just not a pleasant person to be around. And it was mainly because I didn't feel good in my skin. So that was me being short with my wife. That was me being agitated with my kids. That was me getting aggravated at work pretty often and frequently. And so lots of different outbursts had happened and lots of vices started to come in, right? With drinking and smoking weed and recognizing that I was now escaping a life that I had worked so hard to build. And so that was an awareness that I had. And I had this awareness for maybe over a year, it was kind of wearing at me where I was like, I'm not happy, and I was now sleeping later than my kids and not looking forward to work. And I figured, well, I just worked so hard to build this business that now I don't have to chase, and now it's here, and now I don't want to show up for it. And so that was kind of the catalyst for the journey that I went on as a dad and as an individual. And so the journey was really to become more confident, right? I think for me, I recognized I was not confident with my wife. And that was a cornerstone of my relationship and of my existence at the time, right? Like I wasn't desiring my wife the way that she needed to be desired. I didn't feel desired. in that way that I wanted to feel desired. And so that really kind of just created a lot of negative self-talk in my head. And so this whirlwind put me in a place of like, how do I escape this? And so I did group fitness classes where I didn't have to think. I just kind of signed up and I'd go 4 days and 5 days and 6 days. And I would escape it for the hour, but then I would come home and I would eat my way right back into a calorie surplus. And I would wake up the next morning and feel like shit again, right? Because I was consuming sugars and I was drinking alcohol and I was eating ice cream and I was having cake. And so this kind of played itself out over the course of a year. And I finally just said, enough is enough. You know, I got to figure out what's wrong. And so I went to a doctor and I got my blood work done because at the time I was 41, about to be 42. And I was hoping maybe something was wrong with me. Right. Like I was hoping he was going to say, oh, your markers are off. We got a solution for you. It's a quick fix. And essentially he was like, your markers are phenomenal. You just got to make better lifestyle choices. And that was kind of an awareness to me of like, damn it, it's all on me now. And so I decided if I'm going to go at this again, because I had been training always, like I need to now find something that was sustainable. I had tried all these other fad diets like keto and intermittent fasting. I was fasting till like 4 p.m. And then I was doing a 1-hour training session at Orange Theory, burning 1,000 calories. And somehow I was gaining weight because I was eating 3,000 calories after 5 o'clock in the evening. Right. And so my rewiring had to happen in my head. And so I did that. I started to research because I had some success in the business. I would spend the evenings watching YouTube and researching what is really the optimal way for men to train after 35. As we start to lose muscle mass, like how do I make sure that I keep my testosterone levels high enough so that I could build muscle at my age? And how do I also lose fat at the same time? And how do I make that sustainable, right? Because I have a career. This isn't going to be, I wasn't going to be an influencer. I had no intention of starting Dad Bods Sculptors. It was really just to get in a better mental state for me. And so that research led me to a very specific style of training. And that training kind of said, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. This is the style I'm going to go, and I'm going to go into a gym and start lifting weights and following a plan. And then that led to, well, these people that were masters at changing body composition, they followed a very specific style of eating. And this is all they did. So it was like a scientific backed way of eating that would allow me to change my body. So I got deeper into that information of, okay, well, what is that for me, right? And how do I implement that style into my life? And how do I do it with foods that I love? And how do I make sure it's sustainable, that I'm not having these cravings? And so that led to kind of the nutrition piece of it. And then those started to kind of come together. And now the execution time was okay, now you got to go do it. And then COVID hit and the gyms closed. And so that was like literally within the same month. So it was like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't meant to be, you know? And so a month into COVID, we're drinking more than ever. We're eating more than ever. And it's like all that pain just kind of started to resurface again. It was like I just threw out this whole game plan because COVID's here. Now everybody's screwing the world and they're drinking and smoking and eating, and this is it. And I'm like, but now I'm falling back into this trap harder and faster. And so I didn't have an option. So I literally went into my we had a big black bucket that we had taken from my garage in Florida. And I was like, I think I have weights in there. And so I went in there and there was 2 25-pound weights, dumbbells. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to use these things. And I picked them up. And I remember back in the day and I was like, fuck, these are a lot heavier than I thought. I was like, I feel like these used to be lighter. So I thought, all right, well, I'm going to start moving these mother effers, and I'm going to start moving them until they're light for me. And so every day I went and found a 15-minute workout with just dumbbells. And I went in the room, and I've got videos of this like on my Instagram and YouTube. Like my hair was red. It was like a freaking mess. I looked like a pear, and I just started recording myself like, you know, in this little spare bedroom with 25-pound dumbbells. And it was started with like curling and shoulder pressing and shoulder lifts and squats, and coming out like 30 minutes later sweating, and it was like, yeah, all right, I did it, you know? And I did that for 90 days. Well, I did it for 30, almost 60 days, and then the gyms opened again. And then I decided, okay, I got to go in the gym. And that was really uncomfortable for me because I still hadn't been in the body that I wanted to be in. And the gym was a big, scary place. Honestly, if you're not going there regularly and you haven't been there for a while, I never had this feeling, but I did. This was a brand new facility. It was like 10,000 square feet. It had every possible light that you could imagine, like way too many fucking lights. And I was like, I went in there and I felt like I was the sore thumb sticking out. Like everyone's looking at me. You know, everyone knows that I'm the uncomfortable dude in here and doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But I worked through that. Like I leaned into it and I would go in off hours when nobody was there, to get my sweat on, you know? And so I just started stringing together daily victories. I had decided to change the way that I was living. And I started to kind of incorporate these 5 daily non-negotiables. And that was like, I'm going to get up before my family. That was like number one. I need to make sure that I'm mentally ready to receive them because I had recognized this pattern in my life that I was waking up after them. And when they came to me, I was not ready to receive them. I was like a cranky old man, you know, just not comfortable. I was negative because I knew I should have been up earlier. I knew I should have been doing better. And my wife's like, I'm the leader of the house and I'm waking up after everybody, you know? And it was like, I knew I needed to change that. So the first order was like, I'm going to get up earlier than everyone else. And that was really hard, but I decided that starts in the evening. Like I got to get myself unwinding earlier and I got to bite the bullet. And then that led to like, now I'm going to go and I'm going to get a training session in before they wake up. And so that strung together like 2 really good habits immediately, which was like waking up early and then training, sweating. And I noticed when I left that gym, I was a different person. I had an elevation, a higher vibration. I'd come home happier. And even though I didn't look like I look now, I felt like I felt now because I was showing up for myself. And so that led to 90 days of literally training every day, for an hour. And it was more for me to kind of get the thoughts right. And then I decided, okay, now I've gotten some weight off. I've got a good routine. My nutrition wasn't fully dialed in. So I said, how do I get more dialed into this nutrition piece? And so I started studying the macro-based eating style and how I could now incorporate the eating piece of it. And that led to, putting together healthier meals and knowing when to eat them and what foods to eat that were optimal, that weren't going to bloat me, weren't going to make me want to go to sleep. And so, that was a third habit that I kind of incorporated. And then the fourth habit was like I read every day for 10 minutes. And that daily reading was really mindset stuff because as much as people think it's about a meal plan and a workout plan, it really isn't because that motivation, it falls by the wayside really quickly. And the game is the mental game, right? What we tell ourselves and how we attack the day mentally is really the shortcut, or that's the game changer, I should say. Like when I knew how to control my mind, then fitness and nutrition was just a piece of the puzzle. And so those things started to really build momentum, and then people recognized it, and that feels great when people are like, "Dude, you look different, right? Your energy, your body," and it just built this momentum. And my wife and I started connecting better, and I was receiving my kids better. And, that all happened within like the first 90 to 120 days, when I was 42. So that was, almost 4 years ago. And that started it, man. And then I found that strategy worked, and I was able to still run this 7-figure business while being there for my kids, while being available and where my feet were when I was with my wife, because I did a couple of things right before they were up and ready to go. And I became super passionate about it. So I didn't just go like, 1 inch deep across 6 different areas. I just kept going deeper into that topic of training, nutrition, mindset, habits, lifestyle, right? Being a better dad, being a better father. And all of that led to like a 3-year transformation where I took my body from 30% body fat all the way down to 6% body fat. And I landed on the number one bodybuilding team, the Mr. Olympia bodybuilding team, Derek Lunsford, who's Mr. Olympia for bodybuilding. I ended up getting on his team as an athlete. And then I ended up landing an athlete contract with HD Muscle as a sponsored paid athlete for supplements, which was like great. I was spending a lot of money on supplements. And now I had this supplement contract. And then other deals came to the table. This was many years later, but that was it. That's how it started. And that's kind of where it is now. And so now I'm coaching men. I've coached hundreds of men to do this themselves and really help them find the routine that works for them and incorporate it into their lifestyle so it's manageable and sustainable.
So I want to touch on one thing that you said, and it's the 5 steps, the 5 daily steps that you make sure you have. And I think, and we'll kind of get into this in a little bit, but it speaks to goal setting and how important it is on a daily basis. But a lot of times a struggle can be you set the goal, you're good at the goal, and then maybe 2 weeks into your 90-day plan, maybe you miss 3 of the 5 steps. You missed 2 of the 5 steps.
Yeah.
Did that happen in your experience? And then what do you do to keep pushing through? You're disappointing yourself, which a lot of times can get us off of the target.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. My wife had taught me a saying, have grace with yourself. So there was this kind of record that always played when I would go into that, like, damn it, you're a loser. You slept in, or damn it, you ate the pizza when you knew you weren't supposed to.
You're too hard on yourself.
Yeah, and so I was beating myself up for that, and then that, like, I didn't want to look myself in the mirror, and then I would be short with them, and so I would recognize these patterns, and I would recognize it's because I didn't do that, and so I started to shorten that window of beating myself up, and I would say, that's okay. Get the next meal right? Get the next wake up time right. Get the next training session in. And so I just started saying, hey, I made a mistake, but I'm going to fail forward. I'm not going to take 2 steps back from this. I'm going to lean into this, and I get another start. And that was the benefit of the system that I created for myself. It was all about having these guardrails so that I couldn't fail, right? And the guardrails were like, every day I got a chance to wake up early. Every day I got 10 minutes to make sure I put the right information in my brain. Every day I got a chance to train. Every day I had 5 meals that I needed to hit. So those are these micro goals, but that you don't realize when you just say, I just need to win this meal right now. It's like an alcoholic saying, I just need to not drink today, right? So I didn't think about the pizza or the cheat meal or not having the alcohol. I would just say, I just got to enjoy this meal and use it as fuel to get to the next meal. So I started to focus on just short little habit victories. And I never worried about the outcome. Like, I didn't worry if the scale went up or down. I didn't worry if my physique wasn't changing every time I took a progress pic. I knew if I consistently execute these habits, I will end up where I need to be. And that was the game for me. It was mastering the habits as opposed to seeking a specific outcome. Because if you seek that specific outcome, you're going to get discouraged, right? So, but if you just have kind of these daily things that are action-based, then you have a lot more ability to control that. You can control the controllable. You can't control how your body's going to respond every day to a meal plan, right? But you can control the action that you take, knowing that that is the best optimization or the food or the training for your body, and that you can calibrate every week. You can look in and calibrate and say, how do we progress this week? Was it a compliance issue? Yeah, I hit every damn thing I was supposed to do. My body didn't respond. Well, let's figure that out, right? Or was it, well, I only complied 70%, right? And that's why I didn't end up where I needed to be. So this week, let's get a little bit tighter on that process and that compliance. And so these were these little daily things that I did, right? To kind of every 3-4 hours hit the meals. And that was a victory. You know, you figure in a week, if I had 5 meals a day and I'm doing that 7 days a week, that's 35 times I say that a boy, right? And that was like, I hadn't given myself a that a boy in years. But those little victories slowly allowed me to kind of put my shoulders back and head my head up high. And I started grabbing my wife's hand again because I was proud of the action that I was taking. And those, when I went to make a bad decision or I made a bad decision, I didn't associate with the pain anymore. I started to associate with the pleasure of the good habits. And so I started to get more and more, I started to pull naturally towards the healthier habits because I knew those made me feel the way I wanted to feel. And I was chasing that feeling more than that short-term impulsive need that I had, you know, whether it was porn or smoking or drinking or eating bad, right? Or like, I knew, well, that's going to be instant, but I'm going to feel that tomorrow. And that's going to start that negative self-talk. So that helped me, knowing that I was going to hold myself accountable, and that even though I was going to do it there, tomorrow I was going to regret it. And I knew that was going to impact how I showed up tomorrow. And so those were little things, like little tricks that I had set up in place for me. And that's why I kind of had the macro-based meal plan as opposed to like a keto style or an intermittent fasting, because the discipline is really hard. You can say, well, I'm just not going to eat for 12 hours tomorrow. But then when you start eating, your body starts craving. And when you start craving, it is very difficult to fight through those cravings for a sustained period of time. And so that's why a lot of people fail when they do those styles of eating, because they're not sustainable. And your body's craving has certain needs.
Dane, as you kind of started to go down this journey, you know, make all these changes, how did you get or how involved did your family become? You know, your kids and your wife, were they partaking with you in working out, with making these healthy lifestyle choices with eating? And was it right away, or did it take some time? Like, how was that journey with your family, and how is it today versus when you started?
Yeah, it's such a good question, man. I'll try not to get emotional because it's really, when you get your family involved, it's like, I don't know, it just triggers emotions. So they were super supportive. I don't know why I always get emotional. It's just, you go back to these moments of how grateful you are.
We're dads. We understand the emotions.
Yeah. So it's definitely emotions of gratitude, because they were super supportive the whole time. And I think my wife never, like, because I coach guys, and they have, I feel really bad because they have resistance from their wives.
Right.
And I didn't have that. She was like super supportive, because I had to start eating differently, because I wanted a different outcome. You know, I'm going to stop because I fucking emotions. I wanted a different outcome. So I knew I had to make some different decisions. I had to eat a different way. I couldn't eat the way my kids were eating. And that was like, I don't want to be this isolated dad. But the pain that I had, I knew it was short term. If I could just get through this period, they would have a better dad.
Right.
Well, you have to ask that question.
Yeah, it's a tough question, but it's like you're saying, though.
This is a great answer, though.
It was. I want to give you, because there's a lot of good intel here. I just get emotional about it. So they were curious, right? Like, my kids did get involved. They were like, "Why is Dad eating that way? And why is he training that way? And why is he always going to the gym?" But I knew that he was young enough that, because my son was 3 and my other son was 1, so he didn't really know. So I would disappear for an hour or 2 hours every day, and my son would be there, and he'd see me go, right? And he just, "Bye, Dad, you going to the gym?" But he didn't know the pain I was in. Damn. All right. So he didn't know the pain I was in. So it was just like, I had to shut that down and just, I got to do what I got to do. Right. But sure enough, as the results came, it was so impactful. He became so curious. And, "Dad, you can't eat that because your coach says you can't have that." Right. and there was these moments of like, "Yeah, you're right, dude." You know, like, because I told him, like, "Daddy can't eat that because he's a bodybuilder." I created this new association that I was a bodybuilder, to help him realize I wanted to become the people. I wanted to become the people I was watching. And he would see me watch these videos, okay? And he would recognize, like, okay, he would start to recognize, oh, he wants to look like these people. And so he would see their habits. So I would say, bodybuilders don't do that, right? Bodybuilders have to eat this way to shape their body. And so daddy has to eat this way. And so he would be curious. He'd want to eat chicken and he'd want to eat rice. But he still ate normal things, but he was really, really curious. He became aware. And my wife was always supportive. She had been involved in training her whole life. So she knew like this was my thing. So she never harped over any of that. I always had dinner with my family. I just had a different meal, right? And they weren't like, well, why is daddy? And that, like, it wasn't this big awkward moment as most make it out to be. It was just like we all had the meal and I was still dad. But later on, now my son is super involved. Like all the kids come over to the house and they're all like, they all love working out. And it's this thing, like I'm known for it. But in the beginning, he was more just kind of like oblivious. And then he started to see the change. And then he was like, oh my God, Dad, you have abs. And then he started to recognize like, oh, all that was for that. Right. And the association was made. And the last vice that I had was alcohol. I had probably kept alcohol in for the first year and a half, maybe. Right. And I was never a big drinker. I just slowly started to take it out. Because I knew these are wasted calories. I'm working so hard. The minute I put the alcohol in, it just stops the ability to build the muscle and burn the fat that I just spent 90 minutes in the gym trying to do. So I just started to get a little bit smarter about those decisions. So I would drink like twice a week and then once a week. And then it was just tequila. And then I just recognized this isn't really like serving me. And so my last time drinking, I used to love margaritas. We were in Mexican restaurants, like my favorite. So we were at a restaurant and I was going to get a tequila and this was like, it was so powerful. I said, my son said, Daddy, you're going to have a drink. And I I started to think like he knows when I've had a drink and when I don't have a drink. Like he could maybe see. He's very intuitive, and I started to recognize, like, he recognized I was a little bit of a different person when I drank, because I was. And so I said, no, I'm not going to drink alcohol because bodybuilders don't drink alcohol. And he was like, yeah. And so I was like, shit, now I can't have the margarita that I want. I was like, damn it, so I'm like, all right. So then like fast forward like a month later, we're friends and we're all like doing tacos and shit. And I'm like, I'm going to get a tequila tonight. And he turns to me and he's like, Dad, bodybuilders don't drink alcohol. Dude, it was like, damn, he's right. And that was it, man. I never drank again. It was like, it was so powerful.
Like you needed him to push you. Yeah. Push
just
past
to have
that last step.
He's your accountability partner.
Yeah, man. To have an 8-year-old hold you. It was like, shit. It was like, all right. And I never drank again. And that kind of made me realize, like, I made the right decision, And so both of my kids always are like, Dad, you can't eat that. I'm going to tell your coach. And so it's so supportive. It's so loving. It's so endearing. It strikes the heart, dude.
Yeah, that's huge to have that kind of support.
It's very, a lot of guys go through the opposite where they get so much resistance and they get sabotaged because they crumble to the criticism and they crumble to the discomfort because family, when you go to family outings, like I didn't look how I looked for the first year and a half, like I took off some weight, but I still don't look like, if you see my Instagram, I didn't look like that. But people are like, well, I mean, what's the big deal, dude? Just eat the fucking pizza. What's the big deal? Just have this and just that. It's like, well, I know you don't see it, but you're going to see it, right? Like, it's just these little bit everyday victories are going to string together a completely different version of myself. And that was what I was after, was a completely different version of myself. I wanted to kill that guy. And I wanted to be a different person for my family. And so my family, my immediate family, my wife and my kids were super supportive, but other family members were very critical. They criticized and broke your balls, but I learned how to cope with it and I learned how to get through it. And now I teach men like, hey, you're going to experience this and here's how you handle this, right? And you've got to see what they don't see. And again, it goes back to that mental thing that I was telling you. You've got to have a vision. You have to have a purpose. And I had a purpose that was way stronger than the pleasure. And so it ended up being, I ended up creating an environment where now everybody's like, you don't eat cake, right? Like, yeah, no, I don't eat cake, and it's like, you don't eat the pizza. And so like, they know that I don't need, like, wait, you're going to eat a burger? Like, yeah, I'll eat a burger, like, so it went from this place of like always having to explain why I'm not doing something. And now people know, like, this guy doesn't fuck around with that, so I've raised the standard so much in my life that other people around me had recognized the discipline and the standard that I held for myself. And through that journey, my family was beyond supportive.
Is there anything you miss? Any food that you cut out completely that you're like, yeah, I do miss that just a little bit.
Yeah, I used to eat pizza twice a week because I loved pizza, and we had a really good pizza place like right down the road. And after I didn't eat it for like a year, I went back and ate it, and I just had, my digestion was off for like 3 days. I had indigestion, my stomach was, I was like, yeah, all right, no more pizza. So the only things now, like fish and chips maybe, but I know like if I eat that shit like screws up my stomach. So I've had these things that I love, but when I throw it in my system now, because it's so regulated and automated, and it's like that, it wreaks havoc for days. And so I've kind of isolated them. So the way that I still get into my cheat meals, I have a cheat meal once a week, and I've just made it smarter. Like I don't go to Five Guys, which I love. Like if I'm going to die, I got one meal, it's Five Guys, because I know I don't have to deal with the heartburn or the indigestion or the pain for the next 3 days, right? So we're just going to end it here, like bring it on. But I noticed like that, again, it was something I love, but when I started to eat it, it wasn't, my body was responding differently. So now like our cheat meals are all ones that I make here. Like I make a burger every week. I make tacos every week. I make pasta every week, but I do it in a way that with like rice pasta because it digests better. I do it with lean ground beef because it's healthier for me. And I'll do burger the way I want, but my own bun, and I make my own potatoes. And like literally the whole family gets involved and we all enjoy it. And then I eat a low fat ice cream. And sometimes I'll cook a cake. Like maybe once or twice a month we'll cook cake or something, but I won't use the seed oils. I'll use applesauce. So I have all these little hacks where it's like I can still enjoy the cake, but we use applesauce instead of seed oils because the seed oil causes this inflammation for 3 days for me, and really kind of creates this environment that's not seductive to how I want to feel. So I've learned ways to get in all the things like that I enjoy. So yeah, like, but those cravings do go away. They definitely subside, and you start to feel better. And I'm not just that way. Like I have clients that, like one client, he goes to the Jersey Shore like every year, and he's been lifting for 20 years. And he goes every year, and he's like, man, I have like this list of things I get every year. It's like the saltwater taffy, the fried dough. There's a fucking pizza place. There's a meatball parm place. Like I hit them all every year. And he's like, this year, because he had seen so much progress in his physique, I was like, I'm picking one, and it better be good. They better knock it out of the park, And so he's like everything, and he's like, you know what? And it actually wasn't all the hype that I wanted it to be. So you change when your body starts to change. You change the way you look at some things, so it gets easier.
For everybody listening, because I know some people when they heard applesauce with the cake probably made a face. My wife's family is vegan, and I have had that. Her mom is a great baker. I've had that many times. I can't really tell the difference. It's delicious. So don't knock it. Don't knock it till you try it.
He's totally right, man. And it actually is much more moist. It's like you get this really moist cake. I didn't believe it either. I was like, oh, applesauce is the alternative. And then I did it, and we was like, holy shit, that is really good. And so I'll indulge in that stuff, and then I'll enjoy it with like a low fat ice cream, and I'll get into it. But because it doesn't cause this like, I don't know, heartburn and all that stuff that comes up from all those foods now for me.
So, Dane, if you got people right now listening or back home, and they're thinking, how can they get involved with what you do, or how can you help them? Maybe if they want to start on a journey to be a better version of themselves, physically, and then even, maybe as like you said, a husband or as a parent too.
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking. It's really simple. I mean, you can find me on Instagram and message me. Like I have one-on-one, so guys that really have a longer journey, we work one-on-one, but I also have guys that are very common like us, right? And we have a group where I coach hundreds of guys and we get together, but everybody gets personalization. So my differentiator is I don't just give a meal plan and a training plan, a PDF, and say, hey, go at this and find me in 90 days. We literally spend an hour up front kind of doing this onboarding process of understanding their lifestyles, their food preferences, their busy schedule, some of their weaknesses, some of their bad habits, some of their vices. And then we strategically lay out a plan for them. Like I tell them exactly what to eat, when to eat, how much of it to eat, right? Working within their calendar. I tell them what to train based on their equipment and their accessibility, how to train it, how many reps to train it. Then we give them supplementation to help expedite and optimize that process. Like here's the brand, here's the amount, here's when to take it. And so we are very prescriptive. So we take away that decision fatigue of like, well, am I doing the right thing? Because most guys get a program and they try it for a couple of weeks and they're like, I don't know if this is working. Is it? I'm just going to grab this, or and then they throw it out the window and they start making those poor decisions. But we resist that because every week they do a private check-in with me, which is something that I wish I had. Every single Friday, all my guys check in. They take pictures and they answer questions. So they tell me how they slept, how they recovered, how their hunger level was, right? How their digestion was, where their challenges was. And we evaluate like, hey, was this a compliance issue? And we help, okay, what came up that made it a compliance issue? And I work one-on-one with every single client to say, okay, this week, let's focus on this. And we retarget and we set a new goal. And so they know I got 7 days to kind of go at this again. And in between that, they have access to me every single day through the messaging. So they message me every day. Some of them are much more active than others, but that's knowing as a guy, dude, we're alone a lot. And we have a lot of responsibilities. So I wish I had something like this. So that's why I built it. I want somebody to know, like, I'm going to care a lot more about your success in the beginning than you are. But once you kind of start to see the results and you become a believer, you and I are going to be aligned on this. And I'm going to be this guide for you that's always there for you. Whether like one guy's like, I can't believe we're texting at 4:30 in the morning. Like I'm up at 4 in the morning. I'm in bed at 9:30. In between that time, I'm helping people. Like I am here serving them all day long. And that's the kind of partner that I wanted. Like I was very alone. I had to resort to YouTube. I had to be a guinea pig. I had to go out and figure it out. And is it working? Maybe it's not working. And I want guys to know like the decision fatigue is gone, right? You're going to execute and we're going to calibrate and we're going to evaluate every week. And I'm not going to just tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, but I'm going to tell you why you're doing it so that you can incorporate this as a lifestyle forever. And that's my goal, is to change men's lives forever, not so that they have a summer shred 15 6-pack and then they go right back to these bad habits, but to really help them kind of have these 5 daily non-negotiables in their life that raise the standards, but also put them in a body and a physique that they're happy with and they love. Because when they're there, they'll be better dads. They'll be better leaders. They'll be better husbands. They'll be better community contributors, right? They have the ability to influence better. And so you can't do that. Doesn't happen by accident. And like as men, it's like all of a sudden we get in this marriage and like we're supposed to know how to be the perfect partner. We're supposed to know how to be the perfect dad. We're supposed to know how to make enough money to take family vacations and keep up with the Joneses. And we can't tell anybody that we're struggling. Like these are the realities. And so my program is a group of men and we come together and sometimes we talk about fitness. Sometimes we talk about like, dude's it's 7 months into marriage and he's got a new baby and the wheels are coming off the bus, right? And some other guys can say, dude, let me talk to you about that, right? So it's a community that we're building of these men that are using health and fitness as a tool to get to a better place in life, right? But it's not just, if you're looking for a fucking meal plan and a workout, go on YouTube and do what I did. Just YouTube it. Right. But if you're looking to get the right habits and the right mindset and implement health and fitness as a tool to help you accelerate and advance your life to create a better version, then those are the people that I'm most interested in helping because they've got enough pain to where I know that they got some skin in the game because I give them everything. Right. Like I give them my all. So yeah. That's how they would get started.
Yeah, and what you're saying is so key. You know, I think it's building those habits, but also having people you can rely on, having a community, because that's what keeps you going, and it is building habits, I've been on, I think this week was 122 weeks that I've worked out 5 or 6 days, consecutive, but it takes the time, right? And it's the habit. Now I don't, it's weird if I get up and I don't work out right away, cause that's just my process.
That's
but,
right.
it didn't happen that way overnight. And honestly, it was kind of a community that got me going. It was talking about it with people, even talking about it on this podcast, when we started kind of doing some things fitness wise. So, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think it's great. And I think having a healthy lifestyle is not, you can read lots of books, and I love to read. Brandon loves to read. We're in a book club that he denies. We do lots of different things. But it's like you read all these books and they'll all say kind of the same thing. It's not just about, when you talk about health and you talk about mental health and you talk about being happy and all those things, a lot of it is physical too. And you got to have the right nutrition. You got to have the right physique. You got to feel good about yourself. And, if your body's in pain or you're physically not healthy, that can weigh on your life. I mean, we've all felt it before. When you don't feel right or you don't feel good, you're not the same person. So taking care of yourself is definitely key. And, we appreciate you coming on here and telling people about another avenue that they hopefully can possibly utilize to get into better shape and to be a happier and healthier person for themselves, but also for their families, because we all want to be the best versions, not only for ourselves, but for the loved ones around us.
Yeah. And it was a journey of self-development for me, but the goal was when my kids were old enough, like I was the person that they needed. And so that was it. It was building that person, before they recognized who I was, like the dad's an insecure little bitch. It was like, that's not who I wanted to be for them. So yeah, I agree, man. And I'm super grateful that you guys had me on and allowed me to share my story.
Yeah, we'd love to having you on. For everyone, again, Dane Pallarino, and give us the Instagram handle one more time, Dane.
Yeah, sure. It's dadbod_sculptors. So it's at dadbod_sculptors, and then same thing on YouTube at dadbod_sculptors, where you can find me. Honestly, Instagram is probably the best because you can just DM me and then just DM me podcast, and then I'll connect with you. It's me. I don't have any VAs or appointment setters. I run the whole show behind there. It's so I manage everything. So you'd be connecting with me directly.
Perfect. Well, once again, thanks, Dane, for joining the show. We want to. I'm definitely going to keep following your journey, and if nothing else, you've motivated me to keep pushing too, because I definitely sometimes see you feel like you hit a lull, but you got to keep having those goals and keep pushing the boundaries and working on yourself day in and day out. So thanks again, Dane, for joining us. We really appreciate you being here.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dane.
Bye-bye.